All right, so here's the scenario. You have been working on a Power BI report and you've created the report in anticipation of a SQL table or a database source being available. Now, you've created this using like a CSV or an Excel file of the sample of the data. Now, the data team is ready to go. They're ready for you to use it, but you've done all this work using the CSV or Excel file. So what do? Do you start all over again? No, absolutely don't do that. You can actually sort of trick Power BI into using the SQL Server or the database, whether it's Oracle database, whether it's Postgres, or the database source file as your initial file. So let's take a quick look at how you can do that. All right, so here we are. I have a table named Sales Australia that is actually just an Excel file. If I right click here, I can see edit query. And it is, if I go to the source, I can see that this is just a standard Excel file. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. And what I've done is created a table version of this in SQL Server. So there's a table. It's called Power BI Slicer Test. And I've gone ahead and uploaded all of the data from the Excel file right into this SQL Server table in the same format. So what I'm going to do is actually just go to my recent sources or just go to get data. If I go to get data, I go to SQL Server, I enter in my server name and the database I want to use the data from. I'm going to click OK. It's going to let me choose all my data sets. And notice how I'm not interacting with the Excel version of it at all. I'm leaving that as is. You're probably going to want to do this in like a brand new file or a copy of the existing file, just so that you don't mess anything up if you try and stumble around. You still have your safeguarded copy. So I would recommend you opening a copy version of your report just to try this out. Now I'm going to choose my Power BI Slicer Test table, and I'm just going to load it. And as you can see, now I have two data sets. They're mostly identical, except I have an additional measure here in the Excel version, but this is my SQL Server version. So what am I going to do now? Now I'm going to sort of trick Power BI into thinking that this Sales Australia table actually comes from this one. So what do? I'm going to right click and edit query here in the SQL Server table. Then I'm going to go up to source. What I want to grab is everything in the advanced editor. This is what I want to grab because this is what's going to allow me to trick Power BI. I'm going to copy this, and if we look here, what I'm going to do is actually take the Sales Australia, which is my Excel version, and I'm going to click Edit Query. And since I've copied the SQL Server version, I'm just going to go up to Source here, and then I'm going to go to Advanced Editor, and I'm going to paste my stuff below. Now, what we can see here is that source equals Excel workbook. We can just replace that with source equals the SQL database. And I'm just going to replace that entire line. I'm just going to delete and then paste it right here. So what we can see is this has sort of like a sheet and kind. You'll see that this is not the same thing. If I want Sales Australia sheet to remain the name, but I want it to use this source instead, or this table, what I'm going to do is copy this source code, everything from here to the right, and I'm going to paste it right here where it says source Sales Australia and kind equals sheet. I don't want that. What I want is the SQL Server table. So I'm going to paste that, and then I'm just going to delete that. And if you're not confident enough to do this, go ahead and just save the previous code that you had here so that you can just put it right back if you make a mistake. So I'm going to click done. And now I can see that there's no column date, and that's okay. Okay, we can see here that there was an actual small issue here. And what it was there's a promoted headers area. What I'm going to do is skip that, because when I do that for SQL Server, it'll actually promote the first values as the column headers or as the column field names, and I don't want that. So I'm going to just click on the X next to promoted headers, and that'll cancel out that step. Now we can see that we don't have an error anymore, and we are good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit close and apply. And now the cool thing is right here, the data is all set to go. So much so that I can actually just sort of delete this now, delete the SQL Server version from the model. And when I right click here and say edit query, I can see that the source is SQL Server. So I've officially transitioned everything. And just to prove that, I'm going to go ahead and just add a record here to this table. I'm going to go to Object Explorer and just right click and edit top 200 rows. Or I can just do an insert statement if I want to. But let's say I want to add 2025 0202 sales Australia, and I'll say $3,000 even. And now this is all saved, and all I have to do is refresh this. So I'll refresh sales Australia, and now we can see the 2/2/2025 $3,000 record is all set there. Everything has been updated, including my table, and I'm good to go. So again, if you have a Power BI report that you've been developing using a CSV or an Excel or just a completely different source altogether, you can always transition the existing report to use SQL Server or Oracle or Postgres or any other data source as long as you use the advanced editor to change the code. I hope this video helps you out, and if you like what you see, please feel free to visit the rest of my videos and also my Twitch channel where I'm live streaming every single weekend about data. Hope to see you soon.